Marvin is only able to be with us for 15 minutes, so he's going to say a few words about his priorities, and then as kindly said he would take questions from the floor. So Marvin, thank you.
Thank you very much. You basically gave him a speech. But it is nice to be here. Actually, it's a real sense of momentum being here, and it's kind of an expression of the amount of energy that we are feeling in Bristol at the moment. I've just come from hosting Channel 4. So those of you who know that Channel 4 are looking to relocate a national headquarters outside of London. And we met them off the train this morning about 8:30, took them to Ardman, wined and dined them, hopefully impressed them. And we're going to find out at the end of July who's on that final shortlist for hosting Channel 4. But I think it does say something about the level of ambition we've put out for the city and what we're trying to do, that they actually did shortlist us and come to spend some time. I'm just hoping to. If any of you have any backroom connections into Channel 4, please exploit them. But make it appropriate. We don't want anything ham-fisted. And as you said, if we think about the future of the city, we know we need physical development and human development. The physical development is making sure we have enough houses for people, and to make sure that we have the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure, the digital connectivity, the physical things that we need, an arena you might want to ask me about, all those things going on, and underground as well maybe, that we're investigating now. We need that. But that development, we know from sad experience, not just in the UK but globally, you can do physical development and leave people behind. And as John Savage once said, riots are not good for inward investment. If you leave people behind with your economic development, you end up with this social instability, this kind of cauldron that's ready to explode at any time. I'd suggest that was at the heart of the 2011 summer riots in many ways. So we know that we want to do the big development. We're very aspirational for the city. Now 2,000 homes a year by 2020, at least 2,000. 800 of those at least affordable. It's what Paul Smith's been charged with, that many of you would have met today. We're putting that front and centre, but making sure we're investing in mental health of our children. So we are investing in the mental health of all primary age school children in the city. And one of the things I said to our local enterprise partnership is, what would it mean if we were able to say we have the most well workforce in Europe with the fewest numbers of days of absenteeism? So building that resilience into our workforce that you're going to depend on is huge for us. Making sure we have the talent pipeline of skills. It was a big conversation with Channel 4 today. They want access to that talent pipeline, and they want diversity within that talent pipeline as well for what they consider themselves to be, and which they are, which is a global business. So we're holding all those things together. And just finally, something about our approach. What you're doing here fits into the way we're trying to approach city leadership. What people receive from Bristol is not the result of any organisation working alone. We, as politicians, get disproportionate attention. But the universities between them have over 60,000 students. They are a small town. We don't have command and control over the universities. We don't control the police. We don't control the National Health Service. There are so many points of decision making in Bristol that shape life. And what people receive is the product of the interaction of all our decisions. And we've recognised that. So what we've done is try to begin developing something called the City Office, which is a challenge, but it means that we're bringing the city together to look at what are our interdependencies. Every 6 months, we bring the city together, chief execs and directors, for what we call a city gathering, three hours every 6 months, and we try and get alignment. And we're in the process of trying to write a single city plan, not a local government plan, health plan, business plan, a single plan that looks at those interdependencies. So health depends on housing, right? Housing depends on health. Health depends on education. Sustainability of our economy depends on skills and health and housing. All those interdependencies, begin to do it intentionally. So that's a little bit about our approach. I'd be really happy to take any questions or suggestions. If you've got solutions, we'll take those too.
Hi Marvin, Amanda from the RIBA. I was just wondering about the arena. Can you give us an update?
Yeah. So I'd say there's so obviously the cabinet papers come out next week. I want to start by saying, for me, the opening question is not where does the arena go. The opening question at this point in time is, what is the best use of that land? The question of the arena, the question of the location of the arena or the existence of the arena comes up if we decide that that land would be better used for something else. And what I've been challenging some people to think about is that we've just had questions asked that should have been asked 5 years ago about value for money on the arena. And obviously those extended into a value for money study on alternative development on Temple Island, and a value for money on YTL's proposal up at the Brabazon Hangars. Now, again, taking it back to what's the best use of that land, the KPMG report has come back in suggesting that the GVA over 25 years on an arena development on Temple Island is 380 million pound and 600 jobs. The GVA on an alternative development is 850 to 900 million and 2,100 jobs. Now, what I'm saying is there is no political advantage for me in opening myself up to being accused of prevaricating over developing the arena. But what I'm wrestling with is that if you're going to walk away from that report, that's fine, but you have to walk away from it with the full and public knowledge that you're prepared to risk leaving 500 million quid and 1,500 jobs on the shelf. So what do we do with that? What do we do with that piece of land? If we say there's a better use of that piece of land, then you've got to say, well, do we still want an arena? And then do we go with the YTL option? Do we look at some other option like fruit market or something else that other people that have put forward? So I think that's the way I want to bring the question to the city next week. Like I said, these questions should have been asked a long time ago. And as has happened in many things and I'm not making a point here, but we have had to pick up a number of questions since coming in that should have been dealt with. So that's where we are, but I'm happy to take pushback on that if you like. I will say that the level of conspiracy talked about around arena kind of makes it sound like it's attached to the assassination of JFK. It literally is about the numbers and what the numbers say we can get for the Bristol and regional economy.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes. Mr. Mayor, Marvin. I'm a solicitor with Trowers and Hamlins. My name is Paul Mountain. I recently had the pleasure of doing some business with the Community Land Trust, Bristol Community Land Trust. And I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the scale of responsibility, the level of responsibility you'd like to see the Community Land Trust taking for the provision of affordable housing and accessible housing in the city.
Well, this is when I look at Paul and say you need to step up. But what I can say is, since coming in, and one of the things that Paul's really pushed on is that we want development happening on all fronts. So we want the big volume builders, but we want the self-builds as well. We want the social impact money coming, as we've had with BBRC, working with Cheney Capital, mixed up with United Housing and so forth. So we want things running on all fronts because that's the way we think a number of benefits for that from my perspective, and I stand to be corrected. One is we maximise our ability to get the output we want, but we also maximise the opportunity to get the kind of mixed tenure we want as well, and those mixed balanced communities that we have to build. Because it's been a point that has been made from the beginning, and again, talk to Paul about this, is a really, really, really powerful and important point. What we don't want is just to have one type of housing and stick everyone in there, and you end up with a concentration of wealth, concentrations of poverty, because actually we know that builds problems that we have to end up spending tax money on dealing with in the future. If we can build genuine, balanced, mixed communities, they have resilience built into them, because people knock on doors and you have different lifestyles, different stages in life. So we're really keen, and that kind of community land trust is a big key part of that. But we've asked people to really be proactive in coming forward to us with that kind of proposition as well.
Yeah. Hi Marvin, Dominic Somerville, resident of Hotwells, before I say where I work for. I've come back from Ed Sheeran last night, had a great time, used public transport, stayed in a hotel, I had dinner there in Cardiff, I had breakfast there in Cardiff and used public transport to get back in this morning. The Value for Money report doesn't reflect the wider social benefit and economic benefit to the centre of Bristol, which is dying on its feet at the moment, that the arena will bring.
Well, I think you can play with that. One is they would dispute some of that, because when you talk about social benefit, one of the things that someone said to me, but it's about the cultural offer. I said you get a good culture by providing more jobs. Right? If I'm on a street where everyone has a job rather than just 10% of people have a job, I'm going to have a different culture in that street. Culture is not just the events happening in the middle of the city. I'd also say that the propositions coming forward is not an arena or nothing. It's not about leaving a piece of land derelict. One of the propositions around that site is to have a conference centre. We do not have a world-class conference centre in the UK. We've got this present company accepted, but in the middle next to the train station. And one of the things we're thinking about in development is, and all I'm doing is putting the arguments. I'm not making a case at the moment, but I'm just saying this. So you've got a train station being developed, a 300, which would be 250 million. You have £300 million university campus. What do you put next to that? So one of the things about development, isn't it? It's not the development in isolation. It's this interplay with other developments. How are you going to maximise the productivity that comes from that. So if you were to have a new train station or the redeveloped train station, a university campus, would you put an arena next to a university campus or a conference centre? How do you think they would play? And you know, a number of our academics are saying, look, if we had that, we'd be bringing the world's best nuclear physicists to Bristol, the 5 best geographers to the city to do our conferences. Conferences are also big influxes of money. So I think there's been some hay made of that about social value, but I think, and that's being looked into. I think, to be honest, if you look at the overview scrutiny, which is when the councillors pull something and ask to review it, I think my problem with the way that scrutiny's worked in the council chamber over the last few days is a number of the councillors have already declared their position, and they're not testing the report for the strengths and weaknesses, they're arguing for their position. When actually I think we should be looking at the report and saying, are these numbers real? You know, even if there's a 10% error, there's still a significant financial difference being identified here. And like I said, if you're going to walk away from that financial difference, you have to do it with a broad back and in a very open way. And that's the thing that I'm wrestling with. The only thing, when we came in, I would say a couple of things really quick. I'll try and be quick. When we came in, we put the foot down on delivering the arena. We said, get it done, right? Because we want to deliver. Same way as we've done on housing, same way we've done on mental health, we've got to get it done. Stuff started to unwind quite quickly. We didn't change the arena team. It's exactly the same team that's been working on it for 5 years, right? Then we didn't go any further with the first contractor and obviously went to a second contractor. It wasn't for lack of desire or for push to get it done, but stuff wasn't working out properly. And the reason we would begin to ask questions is not for political gain, because there is no political gain, but because the numbers are stark enough to make us stop and have a think. And I think that's what we're honour bound to do. The easy thing would just be to press on and say, we'll kick the financial consequences down the road and you'll never know what you didn't have. I don't think that's an option for any political leadership that has integrity.
Hi Marvin, Stephen Paradise, architect working and living in Bristol. Could you give us an update please on the Cumberland Basin development?
Yeah, so the plans around Cumberland Basin have obviously been floating around for some time now. Interestingly, again, when Paul and I come in, we were being told it's going to take 16 years for that to happen. And we said, no, it doesn't have to. So we resurrected that and put some energy behind it. I mean, it was something that we took to MIPIM with us. So we are getting on the front foot. So obviously there were some rudimentary plans in place. The developers have actually started to come to Bristol to have a look at that. I hosted one just a couple of weeks ago. A whole group of developers came a week before that to have a look to look around the site. So I think there's a real seriousness around getting that done now. I couldn't give you an exact timescale, but like I say, the foot is down and we're pressing forward. And if you've got any propositions around that you want to get involved, drop us an email, have a talk to Paul, and you could become getting involved in that. Or Paul and Colin Moulton are obviously the people that are on the driving force of that. And
just a quick follow-up, if I may, you're happy with the GVA on this one?
I couldn't tell you what the exact GVA on that is at the moment. I can tell you it's a good idea though. It's about time.
Thank you.
Thanks.